1 Samuel chapter 16, through the next door. A lot of you have probably seen this video before, really famous. I guess it's from maybe Britain's Got Talent or something like that. And so I think I'm guessing that most of you have seen it. But I think it relates to what happens in 1 Samuel 16. I want to show you just a clip of what happened with Susan Boyle when she went on Britain's Got Talent.
Hi, what's your name, darling?
My name is Susan Boyle.
Okay, Susan, where are you from?
I am from Blackburn near Bathgate, West Lothian.
It's a big town.
It's a sort of collection of villages. I had to think there.
And how old are you, Susan?
I am 47. And that's just one side of me.
Okay, what's the dream?
I'm trying to be a professional singer.
And why hasn't it worked out so far, Susan?
I've never been given the chance before, but here's hoping it'll change.
Okay, and who would you like to be as successful as?
Elaine Page.
Elaine Page.
Like
What are you going to sing tonight?
I'm going to sing I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables.
Okay.
Big song.
Yeah? Yes.
I dreamed a dream in time gone by. When hopes rise, life will begin.
You didn't expect that, did you? Did you? No.
I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiven. When I was young and unafraid. When dreams are made and used and wasted, there was a ransom to be paid. No sun and song, no wine untasted. But the tigers come with their voices soft as thunder. As they tear your hopes apart, as they turn your dreams to still I dream it come to me. I dream we live our lives together. But there are dreams which cannot be, and there are storms we cannot weather. I had a dream like life would be, so different from this hell I'm living, so different now from what it seems. Now life has killed the dream I dreamed.
This story that we're going to read today, it's similar. In this time, Susan Boyle goes out there and nobody really gives her a shot. In fact, they're kind of making fun of her. And then she sings and they're all, wow. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, the story we're going to read today, there's a guy named David. He's a young boy. He's like the Susan Boyle because nobody gives him a chance. In fact, Samuel comes and tells the dad of this family, bring all your sons. It never occurred to this father to go and get his youngest that was out in the field with the sheep. It didn't occur to any of his brothers, hey, should we go get David? Or his mom or his sisters. Apparently nobody even bothered with David, who was out in the sheep. They didn't think that he was worth even getting. But I want to show you a verse. It's in verse 7 of the chapter we're going to read, even before we read it. And it says this: the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's Family Sunday, which means we have kindergartners and up once a month. We bring you guys. It's awesome to have you. Since it's Family Sunday, let's say, Will you stand right up and just pray the Lord would speak to our hearts this morning? Thank you. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 1. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." Samuel, the prophet, was mourning over Saul just disobeying God over and over and over. And God says, all right, enough crying about it. Let's go. Get your horn of oil. And I want you to go see this guy, Jesse of Bethlehem. It's interesting. Where is Jesse from? Say it out loud. Bethlehem. And that's interesting because about 950 years from now, Jesse's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson named Joseph is going to be told, because of a Roman census, you need to take your pregnant wife-to-be and go back to your home of origins. Of where? Bethlehem. But Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me. The Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I'll show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate. We can see where Saul is at right now. King Saul. Does he fear God? It says if he found out what Samuel was up to, because if God speaks to Samuel and says, go anoint a new king, it says, Samuel says, Saul would kill me if he found out about it. Saul doesn't care about God anymore. He just likes his kingship. And if he found out that Samuel was up to this, he would kill him. Verse 4, Samuel did what the Lord said. And when he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked, do you come in peace? They're nervous when a prophet comes to town. Samuel replied, yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me. And then he consecrated Jesse and his sons, and he invited them to the sacrifice. Sons, all 7 sons of Jesse, come to the sacrifice. And so all 7 sons came. Well, they thought that was all the sons, but there was one missing. Now, verse 6. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, surely, get over the other side. What's wrong? Are you the 2 disobedient sons? My goodness. Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Eliab, 6'2", brave and courageous, a warrior. Samuel said, surely this is the Lord's anointed, the king. And so he approached Samuel. He walked through the kingometer. Not king. I never heard that sound before. That was a good one. All right. Okay, where are we? That was verse 6. Verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So then Jesse, the father, called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. Ladies and gentlemen, Abinadab with his smooth moves. Here he comes, Abinadab, known for his dance moves. Yes. He passed through the kingometer. But But Samuel said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. I'm actually in verse 9 now. Jesse then had Shammah pass by. Shammah was the athlete. Check out these skills, ladies and gentlemen, and these guns. Oh my. Little overthrow. Oh, the TiVo. He knew the TiVo. He passed through God's chosen king-o-meter. But Samuel said, nor has the Lord chosen this one. Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, like son number 4. Ladies and gentlemen, son number 4, is that a physics book in his hand? Here he comes. This guy's intelligent. Very intelligent. Surely God has chosen this one right here. Son number 5, the popular president of every club. Ladies and gentlemen, surely this popular guy is going to be the next king. Son number 6, the artist. Oh, is that a guitar? Ladies and gentlemen, this is certainly God's anointed king. It was not. Son number 7. Jesse's 7th son was a rugged outdoorsman. He could skin anything. Where were we? Verse 10. Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these guys. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons that you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse answered, and he's tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him. We'll not sit down until he arrives. Send for him. 2 of the brothers went and found David. So he sent for him, and he brought him in. He was glowing with health. He had a fine appearance and handsome features. Go ahead. Yeah. Stay here, buddy. Let's read this. Don't leave. The Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. And so Samuel took the horn of oil. I don't actually have a horn of oil, but that's where they kept their oil. He took the oil and he anointed David. This was a sign that God's presence was going to be on him, that God was setting him apart for something special. He anointed him with oil. Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. And then Samuel then went to Ramah. Let's give it up for David. I want you to notice, one thing that I noticed right away is that after David was anointed, Samuel left. That's always puzzled me because he didn't really give David a lot of instructions. He just said, you're king. The problem is Saul is still king. Not only that, Saul's got a son named Jonathan, who everybody loves. He would make a great king. And yet God said, no, you're king. And then the prophet left. I had to think that if I was David and I got anointed and then Samuel left, I'd be like, wait, how's this going to work? Do I go to Saul and tell him I'm king now? Or, do I just wait? How does this work? But Samuel just leaves. It reminds me of Acts chapter 1 when Jesus returns after being resurrected from the dead. He gets the disciples together and he says, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you're going to be my witnesses. You, he says to the disciples, will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the uttermost ends of the earth. And then he said, peace out. and he floated away before their very eyes. The actual Bible version says, after he said this, he was taken up before their eyes, and a cloud hid them from their sight. I would think they'd be the same way. Wait, Lord, how's this going to play out? You know, what's the plan? You said we're your witnesses to the uttermost ends of the earth. How's that going to happen? As Jesus floats away, you know. Sometimes the Lord just calls us. He doesn't really give us the next step. He just says, this is the way it's going to be. And we might go, God, whoa, wait. How's this play out? We don't know. Let's look at verse 14, but see what the Lord does. It's probably a few years have passed when you get to verse 14. Now the Spirit of the Lord had departed from Saul. That same Spirit that came strongly upon David departs from Saul. And an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. An evil spirit from the Lord is one of those things that you can spend a lot of time having a good theological discussion. An evil spirit from the Lord. That's a rare statement in the Bible. And so I'll let your home groups talk about that. I'm not really going to get into it, but you know what I think about when I see that is, do you remember the story of Job? Where Satan comes before God and says, I want to test Job. And God has to give permission for it. I think this just speaks about the complete sovereignty of God in all things. But I'll let you guys talk about that one. Verse 14, an evil spirit a spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's attendants said to him, see, an evil spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord command his servants here to search for someone who can play the lyre. He'll play when the evil spirit from God comes on you, and you'll feel better. So Saul said to his attendants, find someone who plays well and bring him to me. Find someone who knows how to play the lyre. Now here's a picture of a lyre. It's kind of like a small harp. And the plan is, go find somebody who can play the harp. One of his servants answered, well, I've seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the lyre. He is a brave man and a warrior. He speaks well, and he's a fine-looking man, and the Lord is with him. That's why I think some years have passed, because before, nobody even considered going and finding David, but now he's known as a brave man, a warrior. People look at him and they go, man, the Lord is with that guy. So then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, send me your son David, who's with the sheep. So Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread and a skin of wine and a young goat and sent them with his son David to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul liked him very much, and David became one of his armor bearers. Then Saul sent word to Jesse, saying, allow David to remain in my service, for I am pleased with him. And whenever the Spirit of God came upon Saul, David would take up his lyre and play. And then relief would come to Saul. He would feel better, and the evil spirit would leave him. Hey, Christine, why don't you come on up? We don't have a lot. Well, I guess we do. We happen to have a professional harpist in our church, which is really cool. I want you to think about what this is like. If there's some issue you got going on in life, maybe you lost your job, maybe relationships, maybe you're in financial problems. I want everybody to have an anxiety attack right now. Just get anxious. We're going to play out what would happen to Saul, because he would just start freaking out. And he'd be like, David, come in here. And then David would play something, and I asked Christine to kind of play that through for us. Christina's going to come live at my house. Some mixture of the harp just being beautiful and the Spirit of God maybe on David would I guess, chase this evil spirit that Saul was being tormented, being anxious away, and we could bring him peace. So that's really amazing. There's even something more crazy that is going on in this story. We read a few verses ago that if Samuel knew about David, he would have killed Samuel. Did I say that right? Let's try that again. If King Saul knew about David and what the prophet Samuel had done, he would have killed them. But now where is David? He's in the very palace, right? He's right underneath the nose of Saul, who would kill him if he knew about him. And he's serving Saul. And he loves David. Saul loves David now. And he makes him even closer. You'll be my armor bearer now. Stay close to me. And what I see in this is that when the prophet Samuel left that day, and David said, or I think he said, wait, how's this going to happen? How am I going to end up being king? I don't think he could have imagined that the process was going to be first wait a little while and then accept the job as a musician. Right? I'm sure when his dad said, hey, the king wants you to come, and he said, bring your harp. He was like, Saul wants me to come? I'm supposed to bring my harp? What is God up to? You know what we see is the sovereignty of God, how he can work out all things. He anointed David as king, and then he had how that was going to happen all planned out. Took a lot of trust, though, on David's part, right? I'm bringing this up because I think this applies to your life. It applies to my life. Because like David had an anointing, you have an anointing and a calling. And you're probably willing. A lot of you are probably in a place like, God, I'm willing to serve you. I'm willing to share Christ in my workplace. I'm willing to go where you want me to go. I'm willing to start a company that provides jobs. I'm willing to do these things. I just don't know how to start. Let me show you some of your callings. John 15:16. It's my favorite. You did not choose me. Jesus said, you didn't choose me. If you came to know Jesus, you might think you made that choice, but Jesus says, no, you didn't choose me. I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last for eternity. I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. I have chosen you. So you're chosen by God. But how's it look? How are you supposed to get to the point where you're fruitful? You're producing fruit that lasts for eternity. In other words, people are coming to know about Jesus and being saved, and things are being done right. How does that happen? Ephesians 2:10, one of our 12 for 12, but we haven't hit it yet. We are his workmanship. We're his craftsmanship. You are God's craftsmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for you to walk into. He's prepared them in advance. You don't know what they are, but you're going to walk into them. So you're chosen and you're created just as David. So how do we know the next step? If you're in a place right now in your life where you're willing, God, I'm willing. Whatever you want to do with my life. I'm willing to serve you in a new level. I'm willing to be obedient to you like I've never. God, I feel like I'm called to be this. Maybe it's a ministry leader. Maybe it's just doing something at your workplace. But I don't know how to get there. I don't know what the next steps is. Here's my encouragement. Just walk through the next door that God opens. The next door that God opens, you walk through. If you're willing, for David, it was accepting a job as a musician. That's how the Lord brought him the process of being king. By the way, it's going to be a process. We're in 1 Samuel 16. We got 15 more chapters in 1 Samuel, and then 4 chapters in the 2 Samuel when David actually becomes king. But this was the first step, the first door he was supposed to walk through. This is my encouragement. Just walk through the next door God provides. You want to know why? Because God is the door opener. This is how Revelations chapter 3 describes him, talking to one of the churches. The words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David. I love that it's the key of David. Who opens and no one will shut. Who shuts and no one opens. In other words, when God opens a door, no one's going to shut that. Because God holds the key of David. Who opens and no one will shut. Who shuts and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I've set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. Since God is the door opener, if he opens a door before you, you just walk through that next one. If you know he's calling you to something, your next job might be to accept a job as a musician. Which would be a trouble for you, Ron, because you got the musical skill of me. No, it's just whatever God opens up next. Walk through that door. I've told you a lot about my friend in the Philippines, Pastor Wilson. A lot of you guys probably feel like you know him, and it's so awesome. He's just a Filipino pastor, and he's just an amazingly godly man. And as I watched his life and heard a little bit about his story, I think that's it. He just walked through the next door that God opened. He was trying to share the Bible one day when he saw these Aida children. Can you go to the first picture? Aidas live in the Philippines. They look African. In fact, the name that Filipinos call them is the word curlies, because they have curly hair, unlike the Filipinos. And the Aidas, who are curly, call the Filipinos the word for straights. They call them straights. But the Filipinos live up in the mountains, especially around Pinatubo. And one day, Pastor Wilson, just hold here. One day, Pastor Wilson saw these Aida children when he was sharing the Bible. There was like 4 of them, malnourished. Their hair was starting to turn red. They're the poorest of the poor. They're so extremely poor. Dirty. They couldn't read or write. And so he said to these parents, can I take your 4 children home with me? I'm going to feed them. And Kareen's here, who might correct. Kareen can give you the perfect correct story later. And so he took him and his wife took these 4 children home, and I think they fed them for like a month. They started to teach them how to read. They helped bathe them and stuff like that. When they got back, the village people there said, can you take these 10? And so 4 became 10. They just walked through the next open door, and then the next open door, and then the next open door. Now there's a school there. I have a picture of the school. And behind that building, there's like 4 more classrooms. And to the left of what you see, there is dorm rooms, because 100 children live there now. 100 Aidas who were malnourished, who were the poorest of the poor, but now they have a place to come and learn how to read and write. Down below those 2 trees right there, there's a hill, all of this garden, in the kids' garden. They run from their class during break and run down and start weeding. And then they run back up for their next class. It's amazing. It's so cool. These kids are so amazing. Over to the left of this is where an Olympic-sized swimming pool is, because a man from Denmark showed up and built it for them. And now all these Aidas know how to swim. There are no other pools, trust me, in this area than there. And below that pool, there's a fish pond where some church in Tucson, Arizona built. Yeah. And providing protein for them. But God, here's the story. He's just been walking through the next door. Just walking through the next door. That's what he described to us when we were sitting with him one day. Just walking through the next door. Well, another... oh, wait, there's another picture. Look at that guy right there. This is on a bus to take these kids to the zoo. There were so many kids, they had to put little chairs all the way down the middle aisle. Look at that weird guy in the blue shirt there. But here's the deal. There's another door. Pastor Wilson's desire has been one day to start a high school or a vocational school. The school started in 1997, and his one desire is to see a high school. Because in the Philippines, even though it's a developing country, in the Philippines, you have to have a high school degree to get a job. And so none of them have high school degrees. And so his dream has been, I want to start a high school and a vocational school to give them some skills so they can get a job, so they can provide for their families and start breaking that cycle of poverty that they're in. The problem is their villages are here. I took a picture of the village that I got to go to, and it's up in the mountains, way up in the mountains. And there's no way to get to school. They don't have any cars. They don't have any buses that come through. And so these houses are way up in the mountains. So here's the dream. is that they want to provide a high school so the kids can come and spend the whole school year going to high school and then be able to get jobs. Why am I telling you this? Well, our theme has been, I'm sorry, I think I skipped the verse, but I want you to put it up there. Our theme for this couple weeks is this verse that Jesus said, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Whatever you do for somebody who's hurting, you're doing for me. If you're able to help somebody who needs to go to high school, you're doing it for me. And so that's the door I want to open from you. Ushers, come on forward. I got these ushers, and they're going to come by and pass out some pictures. There are 28 IDA children that want to go to high school. 28 kids. It costs $50 a month for them to go to high school. That provides their food. It provides hiring instructors and their medical needs, getting them back and forth from the villages. And so you can start. Here's the deal. Take one and pass them out. I printed 4 pictures of all 28. So there's 120 or 220 of these coming around. Take one. These are the 28 kids that want to go to high school, $50 a month, but it's $600 for a year. And here's why I'm telling you all this. On Easter, April 8th, whatever we get as an offering, we're going to try to send as many of these 28 kids to high school as possible, okay? So whatever comes in on April 8th, we're going to give to send kids to high school in the Philippines so that they can get a job and support their family. This is Albert Magtanong. Philippines is an interesting mixture of Spanish and Asian cultures. So I got Albert. I know this kid. When I went to the Philippines, he was sitting right next to me on the first night in church. He kept looking at my face and writing something. And after a little while, he pulled out a sheet of paper and handed it to me. And he had drawn my face with goatee and everything. And on it, it said, "We love you." It was so cool. You know, it was like a middle school boy just painting, picture and then putting "We love you." I only knew him for like an hour at that point. I'm excited to see Albert go to high school. I want to see him be able to get a job and be able to provide food for his family. And so I'm telling you, these guys live on about $1 a day, these families. So whatever comes in on April 8th, on Easter, we're going to give to send these kids to high school. So I'm giving you these. Pray for them. Maybe as a family, here's what I want you to do. Kindergarten through 6th grade, through 12th grade, actually. Let's take it up. Raise your hand if that's you, if you're a student. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to be a part of this. You get a month and a week. If over a month and a week, maybe your brothers and sisters can combine to raise $50. You can't go up to your parents and say, "Give me $50. That's the only rule. You could do a yard sale. You can do a bake sale. You could do like 4 lemonade stands. You can ask your parents if you can do a yard sale. Whatever it takes, shoot for 50 kids, okay? That would be you sending a kid to school for a month and feeding them for a month, okay? So I pass these out. Pray for them. We want to do this. Sometimes God just provides the next door. And we know He's called us to care about the hurting, the poor, the hungry. And so let's just walk through the next door that's been open to us. Let's help send these kids together to high school.